We're here, we're queer, and we will continue to change the world. Welcome to Queer Changemakers. I'm your host, Justin Mezzapin, pronouns he, him, and each episode will share stories of LGBTQ plus individuals who are taking action to make a difference in our communities and beyond. Welcome to a new episode of Queer Changemakers. Today, our guest is Carey Cook.
That's right.
Welcome, and would you like to give a brief introduction?
Thank you, Justin, so much for having me on here, and thank you for this podcast. I was so excited to discover it. So my name is Carey. I am a practicing psychotherapist. I am also a coach of different varieties. I'm ever morphing coach, which so many therapists often become. And I identify as a good old-fashioned lesbian. I don't know. I'm married. I have 2 children. Is that good? I take long walks. I don't know. I love to hike. I have dogs.
Okay, nice. I mean, well, since you said that, what kind of dogs?
I have an English cream golden retriever type dog. An 80-pound, 90-pound huge pile of doofus. And then I have a 110-year-old, not really, but a very old Chiweenie, Chihuahua Dachshund, Izzy, who basically runs the house and is very sweet, but might bite you in your face. She's lovely. And we did have kind of an Aussie dog, but she had to go live with family because she very quickly got over my very rambunctious toddler and decided that she was going to have that no more, and she was going to herd him where he needed to be. So yeah, but they're great. We're dog people. My wife is a dog behaviorist, so we have dogs.
Okay. So teaches dogs how to be or train dogs?
It's kind of a science-based. It's like a dog trainer. They do all the things that basic dog trainers do, but they also specialize, she specializes in aggression. And so it's a little bit more of, just advanced dog training. People go for very specialized things. She's very familiar with dog genetics, and so she works on things like that.
Wow. Sounds like a good guest for a future podcast.
Yeah, she would love to. She's great. She's probably a better speaker than me. So
you have to be, right, to work with dogs.
That's right.
I don't know. I'm making that up. But okay, so back to you. So you are in North Carolina and have a therapy practice.
Yeah.
So I guess, how'd you get into that?
So I kind of stumbled into it. I got a degree in English. I was raised mostly in the South for most of my formative years, middle school, high school. And I had gone up to upstate New York, and I lived there for a little while after college. I had an English degree, and I thought I was going to go to the city and work in publishing. I got on the back of a horse van, or I lived up with family friends that worked on the racetrack with horses, and I got my business suit and went to the city every week and tried to give them my resume. Quickly, I learned nobody takes resumes, and I was not going to work in publishing very easily. So I ended up working at a bank. Then I ended up working in a case management agency. I worked as an office manager, and a case management agency for severe, persistent, the kind of mental illness where people perhaps live on the street and have diagnoses like schizophrenia, and they come in and they take the medicine and you give them $2, that kind of thing, for the day. We helped them function as much as we could, kind of thing. And that was where I became first interested in mental health in general. Truthfully, I was very bored in that job, and I would just read the files about how these people, what their lives were like, how they ended up in the position that they're in. And I learned it wasn't Like, it wasn't like they were all born that way. It wasn't like, I don't know. It was just, I started to just become very interested in the stories. And then fast forward, upstate New York was very, very cold, too cold for me. Moved down to North Carolina, where it is a little less cold. We have mountain, we still have the mountains. And back then we actually got winter. Winter is slowly fading down here, sadly, but got a little winter at that time. And I started working at a boarding school with adolescent girls that it's called an emotional growth boarding school. So that was basically a
Right.
fancy way that they don't call it a therapy boarding school, but it's kind of a therapy boarding school. It's a place that very wealthy families send their kids who are struggling. And so, like, once again, I found myself kind of interested in this is the other side. I would say at the other place, I worked with people who were much older. Now, all of a sudden, I was working with people who are much younger. And I just became interested and was going through, of course, some of my own healing, truthfully, some of my own healing, some of my own, trauma healing, life healing, being raised gay in the South. Right there's some healing.
Yep.
And I just became interested and I went and checked out a school in California that I fell in love with and went and got my master's in counseling. And that is what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting to see how life how life
Yes.
can take you different places.
I know. I guess that was a
Uh,
long answer to a short, it could have been a much shorter answer, but yes, that was exactly kind of how it happened with how I ended up there.
so you worked at both the case management school and the emotional growth uh, case management agency and the emotional growth before you studied.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean that's awesome because it sounds like being in that place helped you see where to go next. And
Yeah.
like it's with an English degree, that's interesting way to start. Plus for me, I always think there's like a nice. I pretend to think that there's a path. There's like, oh, you do this step first and then you do that one, and it all makes sense. And then
Yeah.
there's stories and it's like, oh, you went that way and the other way, and here we are.
Well, yeah, I like that you use the word pretend to think because I feel similar. Like I like to kind of play around with the idea that there are all these different paths that we can go down and just different choices are going to open up different things.
Mhm.
And no matter where you end up, most likely there was a ton of little things that influenced that. Um, it's fun. And it's fun when we're in moments of feeling frustrated, I think, too. And especially when we're in these moments where we don't know where we're going, if we can just take a deep breath and possibly trust that we might be picking up things along the way that are going to really make a difference later. We just don't see it now, which it can be really hard when we're like, dark night of the soul, really having a hard moment, like to try to remember that this might mean something to me later. This can mean something to us later, I think, always, really.
I think if yeah, when we have a later, if we have a later,
If we have
we can reach back into those moments. And like you said, I don't want to hear that in the middle of it. In the
Right.
middle, like when you're
Yes,
dealing with the thing. Um,
exactly.
Easier said than done. But
Yes.
okay, so this month we are doing a set of episodes on mental health, and
Nice.
sometimes I heard someone refer to mental health as like a buzzword, as if like it doesn't exist, but then also like it's too big for them to really understand what it means.
Mm.
Um, and people don't usually use it easily, like in common conversation.
Hmm.
For example, it's like, oh, there was a shooting at a place. Mental health is important. Um,
Hmm.
Social media, mental health is important, but it's just this big nebulous thing.
Right. It's not tangible.
Yeah, and if it is, it's like, oh, it's tangible for them, for those people who
Yeah.
have these issues.
I'd love to make it very tangible for you, Justin. I can help with that.
Awesome, because that is my question. So, like, when you think of mental
Yeah.
health, like, how would you define that in common
Oh,
language
yeah.
for normal people?
Yeah. I mean, it's what I do every day. I worked with teenagers and children for a long time, and I think that in some ways I love that because as much as I was an English major, I've always been a pretty simple English major. I don't use big words. I don't use big, like, I'm not really fancy. I like to just speak like normal, and I like to make really complicated things kind of down to just normal speak.
Mhm.
So the way I like to look at mental health is, one, we all have it. 100% we all have it. And it is not this, nebulous. See, that to me is a big word. It's not this out there thing. It is just like we talk about, we have our dental health and our dental hygiene, and we go to a dentist and we brush our teeth and we floss. We have our physical health. We go to a doctor once a year, hopefully, maybe we take vitamins, maybe we exercise or eat a certain way, whatever, right? That's our physical health.
Mhm.
Well, mental health is our head health. It's a combination of literally, mental is of the mind. And that is our, our thoughts and our feelings. And then it's also, I think, the part that gets sometimes people forget when it comes to mental health is it's also our bodies, because what we've learned more and more is that our, head and heart are connected. Head and heart and body, right? Like it's connected. So, in other words, when we're really stressed out, we might get a headache. If we tell ourselves over and over again, I suck, I suck, I suck, I suck, I suck, I might start to feel like I need to vomit. Like all of that's connected. And so, but I don't know, as I'm talking, I'm like, wait, am I making this simple?
No, I mean, it's I don't know. Sometimes there are how to say, uh, you're making it easy to understand. It may not be simple.
Well said.
Maybe, yeah, because if it were simple, we'd all be in really good mental health all the time, and who knows where society
Sure.
would be. But
Well, I think one of the reasons that it is hard is because there's so much stigma around it, and people hear stuff like shootings and they know, oh, mental health,
mhm,
or something really horrible happened and they're like, oh, mental health. And then it gets confusing as to, well, like, wait, if mental health is like this, if mental illness is this
mhm.
really horrible, scary thing, then, mental illness and mental health they can be kind of different. Like there's a lot of people can walk around very functioning and very okay, and they can be very happy and not have any signs of major depression or anxiety and be privileged with a very good job and a very good life, and they still have a mental health. Like everybody has a mental health, no matter what, no matter who you are.
Love that. And I guess, yeah, thinking about mental health versus mental illness,
Yeah.
that's helpful. And then what you're saying in your definition of mental health, it's like, yeah, we have our mind and our bodies, and they're all connected. And I'm like, well, it's weird because we know that, like, for your mind is like within you at some point in time,
Right.
it's connected to the rest of the things, but we don't
Yeah,
always. I don't know. I think sometimes we separate the two, like
we do.
separate our
Very
minds
much so.
and bodies, and like, yeah, and even within that, it's like separate our like logic from our like mind as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like our thinking thoughts, they're way better than those feeling thoughts we have. Uh,
Right, right.
because
And we do that even in the therapy community. Honestly, you have like different modalities and different schools of thought. And so you have like your psychoanalysts that are traditional, and it's like talk therapy. And, you might hear people talk about like cognitive behavioral therapy, like where you're working with your thoughts. And then over here, you have maybe what would be, some like your somatic therapists, your mindfulness based therapist, body centered therapist. And often they'll be like against each other, which is so silly because, our minds are our body, and talking is somatic, it is body based. And
mhm.
I have more training as a body centered therapist than I do my original grad school. So I am, a somatic trauma based therapist. That is what I am. And but I talk all the time with my clients. It's like I'm not anti people that are talk therapists. So it's just interesting. Even within the community, you have people who kind of quarrel about what certain things are. The nature of us silly humans.
And it makes sense because we are diverse people. I think there are
Mhm.
definitely some core things that are very unique, similar. shared makes sense for everyone. We all drink water and should probably drink water. Like that's
Yeah.
the we
Sleep.
all should sleep and rest.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds good. But like how much sleep or like
Yep.
on your back, on your side, I don't
Exactly.
people, and that makes sense. So with you and somatic therapy, would you like to share a little bit about how people work with you or how you use that process or a nice little
Sure. Yeah, I can. It's sometimes things that I would say for the well, is that true? Very often people come to me for that. They've heard about it, they
Mhm.
know what it is, and they're asking me for that. So I'm not just going to assume if someone comes in and they are having a problem, like they're, getting a divorce or they're struggling with a breakup or wanting to find a new job or something, I'm not going to assume that they want to work from that lens. So a lot of times people will come to me with that. And if that's the case, then we kind of jump right in. And sometimes, even if not, I will ask, it's just in my nature to think about the terms of like a person's whole experience. You hear that word holistic, the
Yeah.
whole mind, the whole body. So it is in my nature, even if someone hasn't come to me, to possibly ask questions like, what do you notice in your body as you're talking about that? Or, do you have sensations? I look at somatic therapy as almost like a different language. We have this language of the body that is, everyone has it, and it's quite powerful and really, there's some opportunity there when people can learn to listen. We some of the common mainstream ways that you might hear that we talk about that is like listen to your gut. That's an example of how we might listen to our bodies, right?
Mhm.
Like when your body says, I mean, even if you put like if somebody loves asparagus and you put a plate of asparagus in front of them, they're going to be like, they're going to light up with excitement, or chocolate or whatever, right? If
Yeah.
someone is allergic to that and they break out in hives, their whole body's going to be like, ooh, oh, hold on, you know? And so our bodies tell us yes, tell us no based on those things. And so some of it is the first layer is helping people even consider the body as a part of our experience. That's kind of step one. And then with that, there's opportunities to use the body almost as a tool to help us establish safety. You may have heard of this idea of like when we're threatened, the fight, flight, or freeze responses.
Mhm.
Those are all in the body. And so I work with people on how those might come up in their relationships and in their world based on trauma, perhaps, but also just perhaps based on their nervous systems and who they are. Sometimes people are born into this world as um, very like they might use the word like sensitive, or I've heard people describe it like they literally feel like they aren't meant to be in their human bodies, like they were, And so kind of teaching people how to just exist within themselves, and words like regulation, like emotional regulation and things like that are all of the body. And so that I would say, I think that is the simplest way I can possibly describe it. In truth, there's a lot of other, like through this lens of mindfulness, which is basically how we become aware of our sense of physical self, right? We are mindful of, with our mind, we are mindful of whatever's happening. We're mindful of our hands right now. We're mindful of our sitting in our chairs right now,
Yeah.
right? Through that experience, we can then explore lots of different things. And I set up kind of experiments almost for people to explore their worlds in such a different way than they're used to, in hopes of creating a different experience. Um, and I can talk a lot about how, I mean, if you want to, weaving that into, the LGBTQ world, I would say, there's a lot of pain in body, especially when we are working, in the trans community. And so I have found that to be But really almost didn't. I mean, all bodies have a lot of pain, but I have definitely found that to be true in the LGBTQ world as well. I could speak to that if you wanted.
Okay, definitely. But
Yeah.
before we get there,
Yeah, yeah.
is there a minor fun practice that someone could do just to remind themselves that they have a body that experiences things? Yeah.
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 So many. I mean, I think that, well, I think so. So I kind of go two places. The maybe less fun one that possibly is gonna be everyone's go-to, not because it's not that it's not important. It just might not be as fun because it's a little like, okay, take a deep breath. But deep breath is, I mean, really, when you go to take a deep breath, you're feeling so much happening in your body. Now, going back to how I worked with kids, very little did I start with the deep breath because that was not very fun, right? It's not really. So, sensation is a neat thing, right? It's how we so literally like touch, tasting, seeing, smelling. So I would, bring in strong smelling things like we'd cut into a lemon and smell it. You could take the tip of if you have a fingernail or something that's sharp, but not too sharp, you don't want to hurt yourself, and kind of just run it across, the sensitive part kind of right beneath your nose. I'm describing this because I know people might not be able to see the video, but right underneath your nose, but above your lip, just like literally where if a person were to have a mustache might grow, that area. It's a little sensitive, right? And so if you take your fingernail or something a little sharp, but again, not like a knife or anything, again, nothing like that, and just gently just kind of like run across that with enough pressure that you can feel it. And when you're done, if you take your hand away and you pay attention to your lip, do you feel anything? If you don't, chances are you might not have pressed hard enough. If you press a little bit, just enough to feel it, you're going to feel a little something there. You're going to feel a little tingling.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You
I
see
can
that?
feel some
So
there.
there's a ton of little things like that are like bringing somebody awareness that people don't think about, right? Right? Like how often do we don't think about our upper lip much? But your upper lip is having a huge part of your experience, right? It's moving every time we talk, every time you breathe, it's involved in taste. Yeah, I see you. I mean, look, even as, I'm gonna like play with it a little bit on the video. People might not be able to see you right now, but I see you literally becoming aware of your body as we're talking. You're moving, you're like, you're running your tongue around your
Mhm.
lips, you're
Yeah.
moving the inside. I can see your nose moving, your jaw. You're like, whoa, hold on. Hold on. Hello, face. Hello. You know?
Yeah. And that's only one part of the face. And
That's
yeah.
just one part of the face. And so
Hmm.
it's it's really fun and interesting and can be uncomfortable for people to see the world that can open up through getting in touch with our bodies a little bit. We have complex relationship with our bodies as well. So
That's
that comes into play, as you can imagine. Um,
that is
and
definitely.
not just women. I think like the world likes to talk a lot about women's complex relationship with their bodies, which is true. We
Hmm.
absolutely that is a real thing. And I would say men have complications as well in all persons, all persons. And again, you throw trans and non-binary in there, you get big stuff with the body. It's just a big, it's a thing.
Yeah, that makes
Did
sense.
that answer your question? Was that
It
fun
did, it
enough?
did. And it gave a couple different practices, and so I think that's helpful as well. Like
Yeah.
here's something you can do to remember you have a body and are there and get to experience it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I do agree. Like, so especially in queer communities, uh, and I do agree that also men have some of these body issues. I remember a friend posted online a few years ago, and I saw it, and part of it resonated with me a lot. But he was talking about going to the gym, and it's
Mhm.
like, I want to go to the gym to have this kind of body, even though the people I'm attracted to aren't this kind of body, right? Like I find all these other bodies
Right.
attractive, yet I think I have to have this kind of body for this reason.
Yeah,
And it's interesting, right? It's like, huh, that's some good awareness.
it
Um,
is.
and it makes you think. It's like, why? What stories do I have about this body or that body, like what it's supposed to be, whatever that means.
Hmm. We have
Um,
a ton. We have a ton of
yeah,
messages like that.
it's so many, so many.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we were talking before, you mentioned something about you and a direction this conversation can go, and it was about being a therapist in the South and being
Hmm.
queer in the South and being a queer therapist in the South. So, um, two questions there. One, mental health in the queer community in general, and then your experience in the South with our queer community as well.
Absolutely. I can definitely speak to that. Um, so, all right, I'll age myself a little bit here. So I am, oh gosh, I always forget. When you turn 40, you start to forget how old you are after that because I don't know. You're 40, right? It's
Yeah,
it's over. No, I'm just kidding. It's not over. But I don't know. I think I'm 43. I was born in 81. So I want
sounds
to say
real.
I'm 43. Yeah. So when I first became a therapist, I was 27, 28. So 2010. Now I have since looked up that there, there was a lot of things in the gender movements and that have been around for years. I was
Mhm.
I was I was blown away when I went on this rabbit hole of how long the term non-binary had been around. Um, that was not something that was being talked about when I first became a therapist. It was not. It was
Mhm.
not. So it was really, it came down to, gay. That was what we talked about. Um, and so I say that because it's literally, I got to kind of, especially working with adolescents, I got to live during such a rapid change in our community where I live anyway, to where, different pronouns and trans people started to talk more about who they were. And that just wasn't happening, at least in the circles of therapists and where I was at that time. Now I will honestly say being raised gay in the South, I didn't come out until I was in college. I I am an example of one of these people who I look back, I went through kind of my own process where I was able to look back and see that I had feelings for girls many, many times as a young person, literally, literally being unaware that it was happening. Like I wasn't able to put together that's what was happening. I mean, I had this friend that I would go to her house and I was so nervous before I would literally throw up in her bushes
Hmm.
outside of the house and then go in. And I can remember talking to my mom, like, I think there's something wrong with my stomach. I don't know what, and I mean, it's amazing to me how unconscious we can be when we are in circles where it's not safe to even have that, you know, that openness, that outness. I don't feel like I even had that as an opportunity to even have that. I've tried to talk to some people who grew up in the same town as me, and it's really interesting. I can't really name that. I even tried to talk to somebody that was a couple of people that grew up and are outwardly gay, and they wouldn't even have that conversation with me. It was really interesting. So I don't know what that's all about.
Like which
Um,
which which conversation?
just the conversation of like, did you notice, like, were you aware that you were gay when you were a kid? Was it hard for you to come out? And it was just like, I know it's crazy being in the South, and then quickly let's move on and talk about something different. It's like, I don't know. It was
I
interesting.
I, I can Oh yeah, I'm not licensed or anything, so I can say whatever I want. But it sounds like what you were saying, like somatic therapy and how your body's responding to things and your thoughts. And you're like, yes, I would throw up. I knew that I would throw up before seeing someone I may have been attracted to, and I'm just unsure why. Um,
Yeah.
so I can assume other people may have other discomforting reactions. And, sometimes
Yeah.
you don't want to throw up in front of people when you're just having a
Nope.
conversation.
Nope.
So,
It's true. It's true.
yeah,
And I think that's a good assumption for sure.
yeah.
And so yeah, so I that was just it was an interesting experience. Um I kind of lost my train of thought here. Let me think. So where am I here?
Good,
So
because I was trying to find it too. We were talking about your
well,
journey and
yeah,
figuring this out.
becoming, I was kind of trying to, I guess, paint the picture of the time difference for kind of where things were at in the world when I first became a
Mhm.
therapist as to where things are now. Um, I was very comfortable with my sexuality by the time I went to get my degree, through some of my own like healing stuff. But I've also learned kind of humbly that that is something that has continuously unfolded, um, to different layers of that. And in terms of being a queer therapist, it's interesting. I was kind of raised under the school of therapists where you become a blank slate.
Mhm.
And that's been interesting with identifying as queer because to be a blank slate is to not say anything about myself. And in truth, that's how I lived my reality for a long time. And sometimes I still do when it comes to being a therapist. Like it's not really because it's not about me. It's about what the person is coming to me with. But I'm being very honest that that has been interesting for me. I don't know if I have the full answer to that. What I can say is that becoming more and more transparent with who I am, as I get older has become much more important. It's become visibly something that I see as important. I also have children now, young children, and I feel like I really don't think I want to even be in a job where I have to hide anything at all. Um, Even if it is not about me. Like it's like other people don't, who are blank slate therapists, if we want to call them that, have no problem putting that, oh, so and so lives in North Carolina with her husband and two children. And then they go on to become a blank slate just fine. Whereas I don't have that. I have a wife and two children on my therapy website. I don't have anything about my family
Hmm.
on there. Now, for the past few years, you know this, Justin, but just for everyone else, I was a fertility coach, a queer fertility coach, and I was very out in that way. And my whole story was shared all over. And so that was kind of, I think, at the beginning in some ways of me merging, and starting to just be who I am. And I'm actually in the process of redesigning my website and contemplating that very thing, like do do I put myself out there and just say who I am? Or do I let that, because it is interesting how, I mean, even it's not just being gay, it's not just being a gay therapist that impacts a person's experience coming into therapy. I mean, some people look for somebody that doesn't have children. They look, like they just don't,
Yeah,
people really don't want to know much about you when they come to therapy. That's the bottom line. And
that
so
makes
it's
sense.
been an interesting journey, I would say, with that.
And like for me, I guess thinking about things from more like a marketing and business type thing is there are many therapists. So
Yeah.
like for me, if when I'm choosing a therapist, it's like, okay, I'm gonna want someone queer.
Yeah.
Because I assume that means I don't have to explain certain things. They can
Yeah.
understand. And maybe when I hit some of those walls, they can help me through it instead of like they can
Yeah.
see some of the things. I want them to be queer. I want them to be a person of color. I want them to be local to me. So at least it'll be easy to get to. Part of me
Yeah.
wants them to accept my insurance.
Yeah.
And and like have some
Yeah,
religious background ish so that when I talk about that part of myself, it's they can see it from a lived experience versus the words on a page. Um,
absolutely.
but like it's both. And like
Hmm.
I think there's enough everyone has mental health. So I think everyone can get a good checkup.
It's
And
true.
that could be really helpful. So one last question in that direction. For you being a queer therapist and in the South, what do you think is some of the barriers for people to explore mental health in their own
Mm.
life? And or yeah, we'll start there.
Barriers to exploring mental health as a member of the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because I mean, on one hand, I'm sure there is quite a bit that I don't have. I can spout off maybe like an automatic answer in some ways. I'm, but I think there's probably some things that I don't have eyes on because where I am is I am the therapist. So the people who are coming to see me are the ones that are coming to see me. So they're the ones that have, but still no, I can speak to that. I'm trying to pull out because obviously I don't just work with queer people, but I do have a ton of queer people who I have worked with and who are on my caseload currently. Um, I would say what's coming to mind, I will say, so I am slowly working less and less with teenagers. I worked with teenagers for a long time. That comes to mind particularly because I have worked with a lot of trans teens and a lot of kids that um, even kids, when I worked with younger kids who were questioning, that I got to watch, there be a start to wanting to explore something and just a quick, no, never mind, mostly having to do, I think, with parents. Um, One of the things I will say that I have enjoyed working with a great deal is working with parents who, because I don't have the appearance that does scream, I am automatically gay. If I didn't put it on my website, people wouldn't know, like that kind of thing, right? So I think a lot of parents came in and just assumed I was straight. And I actually enjoyed working with a lot of Southern parents and getting to really help them move through their process around their children coming out and their teens coming out and in a place where they felt safe. And then with several of them, they got to even, eventually know that I am gay. And that was, it's just some real transformational things where we all got to kind of move through that together. Um, and so that's one thing that comes to mind. But I would say, I think that, so especially with COVID, I've gotten to work with people who live in other parts of North Carolina. Asheville is this weird safe bubble, but still at the same time, right outside of Asheville is Buncombe County, and that is not always a safe bubble. And I think that people who are born into conservative families and are born into religious families have a harder time knowing how to explore their sexuality. And knowing how to and just feeling very isolated isolated and wanting to avoid family conflict or already just knowing that it wouldn't be maybe there's so much family conflict around other things that just isn't something that can be brought to the table. um, and then it's a lot of unsaid stuff too, I think, where it's not like full on outward, discrimination and in like a very overt way, but a lot of just the unsaid messages still that exist. I think it's like the quieter, the quieter discrimination that exists, that I think people don't know what to do with and are having feelings about and are having an experience around that impacts them and they don't quite know what to do with it or how to show up for that. Um,
Okay.
I think that that is, and I even have, it's probably not something I should say on a live podcast, but I even have a lot of people come in and struggle with, feeling overwhelmed um, being gay in a town that is there's so much gay activism and LGBTQ activism. Like they feel like they're not gay enough. They feel like they're not, and again, I think they, especially when they do find out that I am gay, feel really there's a safety there being able to talk about this when I can give it permission, that they don't really know how to even know how to be gay anymore in this world, it's just, we just tell ourselves all kinds of things in our head and um it can just be, yeah. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I think so. It probably does.
The only
It,
thing I didn't talk about, if you were going for accessibility, that was the only thing I thought mid conversation is, accessibility. That's a whole nother conversation in terms of being able to access resources.
that's
Like
right.
that's definitely another, is that what you were?
No, it
Okay.
was, yeah.
Okay.
But I do think so. If you had one sentence on the problem of accessibility,
Mm.
or maybe a better one is so one sentence on the problem, or if you had like a little baby magic wand to help make it more accessible, here's one thing
Oh,
we would want to see change.
yeah. I would have a giant magic wand that I would like to see some things change. I wish that our system supported. I mean, it's just like, what's more important, healthcare or mental health care, right? I mean, I just wish that somehow our system could support mental health care for everyone. I just think it's as simple as that. I think that I just wish that people could get it no matter what, and that it didn't have to be people like myself and social workers giving our services for free. I think that's a lot of what ends up happening is that people want, people who have dedicated their lives to helping others, they want us to offer that for free. And while I can appreciate that, and I think that's great, it's also it would be really nice if, I feel like we could have it, we could find a better way to where people could get it um and the people who were offering it were paid well. I think that that is all, it's a systems error, really. Uh, and I think that if we did that, um we would have a lot more different we would have different people being able to also make a living helping. We would have more people of color as therapists, which there's not enough of. We would have more gay people as therapists. We just have more, people helping people. If I could wave a magic wand and make it, the people could just go to therapy, and it was, the exchange was lower on their end, but that didn't impact the person providing.
That's right.
They were able to still make a good living. And that's for all social work, not just therapists. I think I wish all social work could be a little bit more, a lot more, not a little bit more, a lot more supported by our systems.
Okay. Sort of delves into a future question I'm gonna ask, but there's one last question I want to ask in the mental health direction specifically. What does good mental health look like?
Good mental health is the presence of any imperfect mental health. So it's, I would say, just people just being aware that it exists and trying to take care of themselves. How do we talk to ourselves? What is it like when you are by yourself in your own skin? And if it's not great, how can you reach out and find a way to let somebody in on that? I also think that not therapists aren't the only ones that help support with mental health. Our friends and our families and community members also show up um, for us as humans. Um, I mean, I can, the I can give you the textbook answer is good mental health is those things that you were naming. It's good sleep, it's self-care, it's the right enough and the right kind of community that feels good to you. It's feeling loved, it's feeling seen, it's feeling understood. Um, and not just by others, but also by yourself. And it's hopefully being able to slowly dip into anything that gets in the way of that, whether it's a past trauma or a mental illness or a mental struggle, such as anxiety or depression or suicidal thoughts. It's being able to get help with those things.
Well, and that works. Yeah, it's like what you're saying about not using big words, and I sort of see that as just making things accessible. Um, People shouldn't have to know a dictionary to understand, to have a conversation with you or me. And
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people who like to use big words, and I'm like, ugh, just say what you mean.
that's right.
Uh,
That's right. I think
I
that.
believe that you're smart. You don't have to like sound smart. You can just
Right.
say words. Okay, okay, okay. Thank. This has been helpful in terms of sort of couching what mental health is, what good mental
Yeah.
health is, and also like some of the things that may stop people. Because I do think when you put words to experiences, uh, or share those experiences, it helps people see those experiences in their own lives, and then
Hmm.
they're able to see, oh, I guess maybe this is a barrier that is stopping me from having a mental health checkup, maybe, or
Yeah.
some way to be able to destigmatize the process.
Yeah.
Um,
Destigmatize. Yeah, that's just it. Destigmatize.
yeah, yeah. Who knows? Yeah. So my mind goes in a place of like, okay, how can people get mental health checkups? Right. So it's like a physical, right? It's not,
Hmm.
you don't have cancer, right? There's nothing bad. But you may learn a little something. Um,
Right.
and I think that can help increase the awareness
Right.
and maybe even lower the stigmatization at the same time, just to be like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And
And we're and
having
we're
that, you know?
we're getting there in some ways. It's interesting. I was actually kind of so I told you at the beginning of the call that I'm playing around with different types of coaching, and I'm kind of doing some stuff around business because I'm, solo entrepreneurship and, being self-employed. And I just started this fun Instagram page. And I was, because it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, I
Yeah.
also was talking a lot about mental health and business and how we kind of hide behind these other words like imposter syndrome and burnout and, mindset and growth mindset and fixed mindset and like all this stuff that is mental health. But in the business world, they don't say mental health, they say all these other things. But I was kind of criticizing that actually in truth. And then I had this thought about how maybe that's a good thing. I mean, yeah, we're not saying mental health, but I think people are finding their own ways to get to it, through the stigma. And maybe that's a good thing, and doctors are trying as much as it's imperfect to offer some mental health checkups, even in your annual, everyone fills out that little depression form in most places. And so they're trying, but we do have a long way to go. That's for sure.
That's fair. And like, I fill out the form, and I always wonder, like, what do they do anything with this? There's never a follow-up question or anything, but I guess maybe my answers aren't bad enough for them to say, we
Right.
should probably talk about that.
Right.
Uh, but okay, yeah. And I don't know if it's so many things in life were neither good or bad, I think. So like
I
calling
agree.
something burnout instead of a mental health issue. Um, I I
Right.
see how it makes certain people be more, I'll click on that link. I can share this
Open to
post
exactly.
versus mental health
Exactly.
challenges in business. I probably shouldn't share that because
Yeah, I know.
because the stigma around it all.
I know. I
Um,
mean, it's so, and that's what this whole thing started because I was listening to all these people talk about like marketing and they're like, don't, because they're like, well, I'm a wellness coach. I help people with anxiety and oh, at work. And they're like, don't start with that. start with something else. They don't want that. They want to know that you're gonna, have more money, that you're gonna make them more money, that you're gonna help with employee retention. You're gonna, you don't give them what they actually want. Even if they want wellness, you don't say that. I'm like, what? It's so backwards.
You did how they say it. Sell people what they want, and for the good people, give them what they need. So
Yes,
you're
yes.
gonna sell them employee retention, and then you're gonna give them mental health for the employees and things that they can do. But some people
Yeah.
want to write that check. But at the same time, I do think if we saw more of these, if people could connect those dots easier, now it makes it easier for the changing of the system and like getting more resources out there.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Because now it's like, oh, I see a clear line between mental health and burnout. I see a clear line between this and employee retention. Here's how
Yes.
we can, here's why we should probably put money to this.
Yes.
Um, Easier said than done. And
Yes.
it's a challenge. But okay. So my favorite question that I ask everyone as a member of our LGBTQ plus community, what is a future vision you have for community as a whole, as a next
Mm.
step or an improvement?
Change makers. Um, yes, I feel like I gave away my best answer earlier when you asked me
When
the magic
or we get two,
wand.
but maybe you get two answers.
I know, I mean because that's really, in some ways, that is the best answer. I just wish that there's just such a movement for, yeah, anyway. I wish somebody would pay people, mental health professionals, and I wish people could just have that like they do, like they're supposed to have with insurance.
Yeah.
Um, oh gosh, I'm thinking. I mean, I think that we are really there's so I it's funny. Sometimes I just look around, like when I did fertility coaching for that, with a couple years I did it, the few years I did it. I was just amazed. We really are trying so hard as a world to talk more about things, everything having to do with gay.
Mhm.
And it still somehow just feels like not enough. Like I just want more for our families. I think becoming a parent has really, I have always said I'm not really a big activist. I kind of like the passion and the drama of it, kind of just like, I'm gonna do my little activist work in the corner, like with one
Mhm.
person. That's how I operate. But having children really has brought out a bit of a fire in me of just, I just don't want I just don't want there to be the things that do exist. But I know enough to know that's not going to be the answer. So, I think that social media has amazing opportunity for people to be talking more and for there to be more community, more spaces where there can be inclusiveness and um, that can join with people who aren't gay and can help just everybody just get along, you know? Um, But this answer feels like just way too lame. So I'm going to go with my original answer of the everybody gets free therapy.
Yeah, yeah. All answers are good, and
All
even
answers are good.
all answers are good. And
I feel like there's something that I'm trying to piece together that I want for families, but I just can't.
yeah, and I think it's I don't know. So my mind tries to make everything the same, and put it all in one big line. And I think the idea of like you mentioned, people may not have the permission or they
Mm.
don't want to explore certain questions.
Hmm.
And then you're talking about how social media, for more talking in communities, like actual inclusive community building,
Hmm.
making and experiencing. So yeah, so something in there with other stuff you said, probably, yeah, we can throw it into AI and see what it says.
Magic is happening. Magic is happening in there somewhere.
It is, and it's there, and I think, especially your background and experience, like working with, you know, people off the street, case management,
Mm,
right? Because like, oh, does it? Yeah, I'll connect it. Um, how people online are talking about burnout instead of using mental health.
mm.
And then like you were saying, we want these people to take their meds, so we also have to give them $2 because that's gonna help push the next,
Oh,
right?
that's an interesting point. I'll give you that. Yeah, yeah,
Right? 'Cause
yeah.
I'm sure there are people who are like, how dare you give these people money
Uh-huh.
and free drugs? They don't deserve
Uh-huh.
that, right? But it's like this is the system, right? If we
Right.
can, it
Right.
only costs $2 to help this person not have an episode somewhere else, and like we don't
Right.
have to call the police, which is more
Mm-hmm.
money coming out of the system. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention if there's any experiences with other people or situations. Now it's like there's more businesses and families that are interrupted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like two
Yeah,
dollars for a free pill.
that's right.
Right. And I think sometimes it's thinking of how we can, or at least the way that I think about it is how do we see these experiences and these stories? Because
Uh-huh.
that story in of itself, it's like, okay, you don't want to pay for mental health, but look at this $2, like extra two
Right.
dollar thing and what it can be causing. This person who
Right.
was being called the cops on every other week, right? And now it's
Right.
less of that. And it's a way to sort of connect those dots, build that line. Um, yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got there, but I
Yeah,
appreciate
no, I'm
it,
with you.
and let's
That's
okay.
right.
So thank you for sharing that. And who knows,
Yeah.
as we say words out loud, I'm hoping that listeners will take their brains and their own experiences and be like, oh, you said this thing, and I experienced this other thing. What if boop, 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 boop. Here's a
Yep.
grant for free mental health checkups.
Absolutely.
How to get that paid for. Uh,
Absolutely. Well, and I hope that if anyone does, I know I'm not really promoting anything too big, but I hope that if anything did resonate with anyone and anyone wants to reach out, I hope that they will and can.
yes,
If people want to chat.
I will be having your information in the show notes so people can connect with you, see
Awesome.
what you're up to, and who knows, maybe there's somebody who's like on a foundation. It's like, yes, that would be cool. I have
Yeah,
that money.
that's right. That's right.
Let's open that up because
That's
because I feel
right.
like if someone is providing mental health care for others and they don't have money to live, that may cause another mental health problem on their own, and then they can't provide that care, and like we
Yeah.
anyway.
Hence our social work system.
Yeah, and like last week, okay, going into a different place, but there's a point. Last week I was at a Code for DC, sorry, Civic Tech DC, a meetup for like technologists who want to like build software for good.
Uh-huh.
Non-profit group, and people don't get paid. Volunteers show up that help their skills to make the city better. And there was somebody there who was like, "Yes, I'm from social work, but I'm definitely exploring getting into tech because I have bills and there are places I want to live, and social work is not paying, and the stress that's on me at the same time, I may need to be in another field." And part of me is
Uh,
like, "Oh, that's." But people are here because we realize some of the things we do in tech helpful. Um, isn't that helpful? And like some
right.
work, it could be like you should be.
Right.
No, we're losing the good ones because now So, but I do think
Hmm.
that if we found ways to like look at these problems and make sure that everyone can have good qualities of life, then we can hopefully focus our efforts on those harder problems, right? It's
Yeah,
easy to build an app. It's much harder to help someone like.
yeah, it's true.
But okay, so
Okay.
now rapid fire questions. You
All
ready?
right.
You ready? I'm
I'm
gonna start with
ready. I'm
one.
ready.
All right. Question one. What's
Okay.
something that inspires you and why?
what's something that inspires me and
Yeah,
why? Oh my gosh, that is a big question.
I know. I
I mean, it's like it changes because right now I'm making this business Instagram site and I'm listening to all things people talking about coaching and people talking about business, and I get real inspired by that. But, I get inspired. You were asking the wrong person. I literally get real inspired by everything all the time. Like the eclipse, or not the eclipse, the
oh,
eclipse did inspire me, but the Northern Lights inspire me. Like everything, just I am inspired. I am easily inspired. Is truthfully like
that's
your shirt is inspiring me right now, and I want a
okay.
rainbow headband. So
Oh,
like I just that's kind of how
it sounds like you get to experience inspiration a
life.
lot, which is great.
I do, I really do. Life is very inspiring to me, even on my worst days, which I feel grateful for that.
Okay. Next question. What's your favorite self-care routine?
Self-care routine. A cup of coffee, being outside early in the morning, or getting up if I no, this is a little pre-children, but getting up, packing up everybody, the dogs, and going out really early and hiking. I live in the mountains, so hiking really, really early, like barely light. So you're like hiking up the mountain. You're scaling the mountain while the sun is coming up. It's my favorite self-care.
Beautiful. Um, okay. Do you have a favorite joke?
No, I don't. I literally don't know any jokes. I
I
need to
mean,
get
kids are
better.
as they grow up, right?
I know I need to get
Favorite
better. I
joke.
can never even think of any jokes. The only joke I ever have learned is so lame. It's like, why does the hummingbird hum? Because he doesn't know the words to the song.
Huh. It's all right.
Somebody told me that as a kid and it stuck with me. And I'm like, is that even a joke?
Okay, we're just gonna leave it there. We'll say it is a joke. We'll say it is a joke. There are lots of songs that I think I know the words to, and then I read the lyrics, and I'm like, I was totally wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so my word of the year is co-creation. Okay, so
Mm,
when you think about what you're doing this year or what you would like to see happen, what is a skill or support that someone could do that would like they would help you, and then you would be able to do this new thing? Um,
mm. Um, I want to I want to make a course. I want to turn something that I have into a course. So I need to figure out how to make a course. I mean, most of all my stuff that I need to do is going to be like technology and social media stuff. So I would like to learn how to edit videos. I And then the other stuff, I mean, is more like me figuring things out myself, I suppose. But is that kind of what you mean?
yeah, yeah, I'm still working with this question to figure out how to get there. So people,
Yeah.
I'm already doing the things. I don't need help or support at all.
You want to bring people together.
I want to bring people together and learn about some of the things that hold us back. Um,
Nice. Yeah.
and I want to create more things. Like
Yeah.
podcast is cool, but I also like want to create like more things. So
Yeah. I am a chronic idea haver. I have ideas and I want to do things, and then putting them into action is interesting. So, I think that editing videos and like that's what this whole Instagram page that I'm doing, it's just hilarious. You should follow it because I'm literally going to be trying to do things I do not know how to do. Like I'm just going to do that just over and over again and just try to put myself out there and see what happens.
I look forward to following that, and we'll definitely have the link in the show notes. So, okay, the final two questions. So, one, who is a queer change maker that inspires you?
Career change maker. Wow. I mean, well, I tell you, I am Jamie from the Queer Family Podcast is incredible. I'm going to connect you to if you could get her to come onto this podcast. I mean, she is just really in terms of for gay families, it's just revolutionary what she's doing. She has this amazing podcast with thousands of episodes of queer people who have started families and their journeys around families. So it's blended families, trans families, adoption, surrogacy, donors, people who decide not to have kids, people who, she got at the first people who ever had donor kids and like from like the
Wow.
1970s. Yeah, like, and it's just really cool. Lots of people who feel very, very isolated in all parts of the country and world can listen to her podcast.
Hmm.
And I mean, she is definitely a change maker.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then final question. Do you have a piece of advice or guiding word of wisdom that is helpful for you in your journey?
Guiding advice. Oof. I don't know. Easy does it. One day at a time. The best way to save money is to save money. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. That last one could be a joke. I don't know.
That's it.
But yeah, easy does it, and one day at a time. Those.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if yeah, I think those are, I have a ton of them like in my head that I can kind of, I don't
Those are the
know.
ones that came to mind.
Yeah, those are the ones that
And
came to mind.
look at the time. So
There we go.
thank you so much for this conversation. Sharing
Thank
your
you, Justin.
experience.
I hope it was helpful. I look forward to hearing what the other mental health people that you get together. Are you getting together more than one?
Yeah. It will be interesting. It will be interesting. And even if they said the same exact things you did, I'm sure they would say it in different words.
Of course.
Their journey, it would be so weird if they had the same exact journey you did.
That would be weird.
So confused.
Yeah,
But
that'd
I'd
be
be
weird.
amazed and confused at the same time, which sounds
That's right.
But anyway,
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear your podcast. I'm looking forward to seeing where it all goes. I think you're doing a really amazing thing.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Queer Changemakers. This is Justin, and I hope you are able to get some inspiration and maybe some ideas about how you can take action to create positive change in your life, communities, and beyond. See you next time.